You guys had some cues about Eddie Van Halen's legendary techniques, and your good buddy Uncle Ben is here to A the F out of them. Let's get into it. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben, and welcome to a brand new installment of FAQ, the only FAQ series powered by my amazing Patreon cult over at patreon.com/BenEllerGuitars. Sign up today even for just $1 a month. That's going to get you access to all kinds of goodies, like an extended ad-free cut of this video, as well as the opportunity to ask questions that could be answered on future installments of this very series. So don't delay, sign up today, and I'll see you there. My awesome patron Mark Bourne must also be a fan of Things That Are Nice because he asked me for some tips on some Van Halen style shenanigans. He said, give us some tips on those Van Halen slides and finger tapping and some ways to get better. I sound like a hot mess. Well, we can't be having you do that. We got to keep the legacy of Eddie alive, and the only way to do that is to refine some of our technical approaches to these things. We'll start off by talking about the tapping and all that jazz. Like most technical things on guitar, some of this is technique based, making sure you're wiggling those hand fingers exactly right. But a lot of it is also just damage control being done with both hands to keep everything sounding nice and clean. That way, every time you want to do some tapping stuff, you don't have to raid your stepmom's boudoir for a hair scrunchie or something like that. Eddie didn't need that. We don't need that either. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm going to be playing my lovely vintage Ibanez RG750 here. I've got that going into the MXR Super Badass Modified Overdrive into the front of my Bad Cat Hot Cat 50. And I've got this thing tuned down 1/2 step. Now, let's get into it. Eddie's actual tapping technique, I think, is best looked at as being a left-handed technique adapted for the right hand. Because essentially all that we're doing here is the same old hammer-on and pull-off technique that we do with our left hand all the time, just with our right hand instead. The same rules apply. Like if I was doing an open string hammer-on pull-off like this with my left hand, well, what are the details going into that? We're having to snap the finger down hard onto the string, that way it starts it vibrating. And then whenever we pull off, we kind of have to flick it a little bit. We're not just taking the finger off of the string, we're kind of plucking it as we come off of it like that. The exact same details are true whenever we're doing this with our right hand. You've got to quickly snap the finger down onto the string and then kind of pull it off like that, the same way you do with your left hand. A great way to get used to this is just to go back and forth between the left hand and the right hand. You're doing the same technique, it's just in the other mitt instead. To a lot of players, tapping seems like it's some crazy radical technique, but it's really just a familiar thing you've probably already done for a long time, just in a different hand instead. Most of his tapping patterns would start off with a right hand tap, like let's say the 12 here on the high E, and then he'd pull off to 2 different notes here in the left hand. So one of the first things you want to think about here is your right hand muting. And this is the number one mistake that I see people make when they get into tapping. They kind of float the right hand like this, so it's floating above the guitar. And as you can hear, your unused strings generate a ton of noise. They just talk at you because you're kind of smacking the crap out of the instrument. What you've got to do here is to use the butt side of your palm, just a flat part here at the base of your palm, and cover up any of the strings that are lower than the one that you're playing. So for example, what we were playing there a second ago is on the high E string. So under my right hand here, under the butt of that hand, I have skin touching the low E, the A, the D, the G, and the B strings. Those are all being kind of smushed here by the right hand. A lot of times people worry that if they put some pressure on the strings, they're gonna like fret notes and generate a ton of noise. But due to the glory of distortion and amplification, the compression will ensure that these notes are louder than anything that your hand is picking up here on the unused strings. Get a good look down the barrel here at how my right hand is covering up all those strings. The right hand is is for muting out strings that are lower than the one that you're currently playing. So you got to get kind of used to feeling your way through it, just like the blind man at the orgy, where my hand is kind of progressively covering and uncovering the strings depending on which string is being tapped. To help you get used to that progressive covering and uncovering of the strings, I suggest just taking a symmetrical pattern and moving it across the strings, like maybe, I don't know, 5, 8, and 12, just going through all 6 strings. As I do this, watch the way that the right hand progressively uncovers the strings that I want you to hear. That sounds kind of cool. You might have noticed there too, sometimes I anchor the thumb on the side of the neck. I've seen Eddie do that a lot of times too. I think just kind of having that anchor point like that makes it a little bit easier to slide up and down the strings rather than just kind of floating with that thumb. So everything we talked about here so far has covered what I call the low muting. We're muting out the strings that are lower than the one that's in play. There's one more trick I want to show you about low muting too that's a big help. Because especially whenever we're playing on the high strings, like let's say your classic eruption style B string pattern, right? The string that's at the highest risk of ringing out is the next lowest one, in this case, the G, right? So one thing that I do is to kind of double bag the G string, as they say. I don't know. And I like to do a little bit of what I call tip muting. Just the tip, just to see how it feels. God, I'm full of this stuff today, guys. I'm sorry. So what I'm talking about here is using my first finger as the last line of defense to muting out string noise coming from the next lowest string. Again, in this case, the G. So you'll notice here with my first finger, rather than just fretting on the fingertip like this, where it's totally free and clear of that G string, what I'm going to do instead is to play more on the finger print. That way the tip of that finger comes into contact with the G. Now I'm not barring it. I'm not doing that. I'm just barely touching it. You'll know you're doing this right when you can pluck that G string and it barely makes any sound. That's what she said. Just that slightly choked out sound is what you want to know you're doing your tip muting right. Watch again here and you'll see what I'm talking about here. So using the left hand, I'm just going to fret on the finger print as I do this tapping pattern, and that's going to ensure that that G stays nice and quiet. So between the right hand doing that progressive muting and unmuting and the left hand doing that tip muting on the next adjacent string, that's going to cover all of your low muting techniques. Now let's talk about the opposite side of this, which is the high muting. Because those high strings can ring out on you too. For example, if you were to tap a really hard E note on the G string, your high E string will start vibrating sympathetically because it resonates at the same frequency. High E string's ringing, I didn't even touch it. So we have the extra problem of muting out the strings that are higher than the one that's in play. This is again going to be the left hand's job. Your first finger does a lot here. Again, the first finger is always the last line of defense against string noise coming out back here. So you'll notice that whenever I play a pattern, like let's do the eruption pattern again, but this time on the G. So I'm doing 9, 2, and 5 right here. So you'll notice whenever I do this, what's going on with the low muting? Well, the right hand is covering up the E, A, and D. I've got the D double bagged here using some tip muting in my left hand. And then you'll notice that the other high strings that are not being used, so in this case the B and high E strings, are being slightly muted out here using the side of my first finger. Again, it's not a bar. You don't want to press and generate more noise. It's not that at all. I'm just very lightly using the fleshy underside of that finger to slightly choke those strings out. Again, you have the tip sounding the note out on the G, and then the next two are just dead. If you're getting a note out of it like this, then you're fretting too hard. This is kind of tricky, and it'll really help you learn some first finger independence and control, because you have to have a lot of pressure on that fingerprint, but stay nice and loose everywhere else to ensure that you're muting stuff right. You know, you don't want too much pressure here at the very tip, because then you're gonna fret the next lowest string. You don't want too much pressure here on the underside of the finger, because then you're gonna fret the higher strings. But using that underside of the finger to mute the adjacent higher strings is gonna make this sound way, way, way cleaner. Now this gets tricky if you're doing a pattern on like the D string, for example, right? You'll notice in that case right there, I've gotta have the thumb nice and low here on the neck. That way I can keep this finger good and straight. If the thumb is more, you know, in the manglet and stranglet position, it's a lot harder to keep that first finger from looping like this, which leaves all these strings free to ring out. So you gotta use some proper classical guitar player technique here and keep that thumb on the back. That way you can keep the underside of the first finger good and straight and softly mute out those higher strings. Easy peasy, fretboard squeezy. Getting those two arm hands to work in sync with each other to progressively cover and uncover every string that you don't want being heard is kind of like a synchronized dance of sorts, you know? As we descend down through the strings, the right hand is going to be progressively uncovering the new strings so we can hear them, while the left hand buries the strings that we've already played. That way they don't talk at us, you know? You could take something like an A minor pentatonic scale here in the left hand and also just tap on the 12s here with the right hand. And as you go through this, just kind of do the eruption pattern, you know, right, left, left. And whenever you do this, take your time with it and think about what's going on next, right? Whenever we're here on the high E string, next we're going to be going to the B string. That means that the right hand here is going to have to uncover the B. That right there. The left hand is going to have to start covering up the high E. Whenever we go to the G string of this, the right hand is going to have to uncover the G. The left hand is going to have to cover the B. By the time I get down there to the low E string, the left hand first finger here is covering up A through high E. So all those are dampened out. You'll notice at this point, the right hand is doing what I told you not to do. It's floating. But I do still have that anchor point here with the thumb here, just to give me some physical contact with the guitar and keep me from doing that number right there. It also makes it easier whenever you start ascending, because you already have a kind of a fulcrum here. And as I'm ascending like that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm here on the E string, right? I don't have anything muted in the right hand. Time to go to the A, so I'm gonna have to mute out just a low E string only whenever I go there. Time to go to the D string, I'm gonna add another here in my palm. Adding another. Adding another. Just make sure you're not losing contact with that right hand. This is a big problem that a lot of people have. They kind of like jump whenever they're moving string to string. You don't want to do that. That's going to generate noise on you right there. You're just kind of progressively sliding that hand up and down the strings. Don't be afraid to have a little bit of pressure on it. You'll see the strings moving. See that? You'll see them kind of wiggle and move around whenever you do this stuff. That's totally okay. Don't worry about that. Now, one more thing to focus on to get the Eddie Van Halen tapping stuff down is you got to learn the hammer-on from nowhere. So all the patterns that I've been playing here so far have started with the right hand. You know, I said it was like right, left, left. But there are some Eddie tapping patterns that start with the left hand. That's a lick that starts off with a hammer-on from nowhere. The left hand kind of does, you know, what the tapping hand is doing. It just snaps down on a note to start that thing vibrating. This takes a pretty considerable amount of power in that left hand. Having light strings and low action definitely makes it a little bit easier if you're doing this on a guitar with heavy strings and really high action. That first finger's got to get tougher than a $2 steak. But, you know, for me, on this thing, it's pretty easy to do, which is nice. I got really used to doing the hammer-on from nowhere technique by taking 3-note per string scales and just playing straight through them. So that means on the ascending portion here, it's always going to be starting off with the left hand, like if I play an A major scale here. That's a cool sound to use that in soloing and stuff too. Now as you go through this, all the same muting principles apply. You'll see that right hand coming up and down, the left hand gliding up and down here too for under and over muting techniques. And you'll notice one thing about this. Whenever you're transitioning from string to string, that's kind of the danger zone. Because whenever I'm fretting the tapped note in the right hand, if I start trying to do the left hand hammer-on from nowhere on the next string, they can bleed together in a really nasty way. There's probably some context where you could use that, but I'm not going to say that's typically the sound that you're going for. So you got to become really conscious again of the way the two hands are working together. So in other words, what I'm going to do whenever I'm making that string to string transition right there is I'm going to hold down the tapped note on the previous string as long as I can. Now, the nanosecond that it's time to do the hammer-on from nowhere onto the next string is when the right hand is going to release its note. Now, when I say release, I don't mean come off of the string and the neck entirely. That's how we generate noise. We don't want that. It's really more like I'm going from pressing the string to not pressing the string. I'm still kind of touching it a little bit. It's like the technique that we do with our left hand all the time where instead of coming off of a note, you just loosen your grip and it mutes it like that. Again, I'm not coming off. I'm just letting go. I still have skin touching the string. That's what this technique feels like too. Try to shoot for not having a gap between the notes like this. That's the old premature release that happens to all of us every now and then, okay? It's normal. You gotta try to hold that thing out as long as you can. God, the jokes are making themselves today until it's time to hear that next note sound out. It's a lot of stuff to juggle, you know, but it's really a game of damage control. Because that's really what your hair scrunchie is doing all the time, right? It's covering up all of those open strings from ringing out. But you don't have to have that if you can properly use your left and right hands together to progressively cover and uncover everything that you don't want to be heard. Keep all that stuff in mind, practice it hard. You're going to be tapping like Yeti in no time. On over to Uncle Ben's boombox, talk about what I've been jamming out to lately. Here lately, I've been hooked on listening to the Orange Mathematics Redux by Frontierer. Now, this record came out in 2025. It's an update from their Orange Mathematics album, which came out in 2016, I think. And it is some of the most like wild and crazy savage music I think that I've ever heard. It's pretty inaccessible. I think even if like you're a hardcore metal fan, this still might be too much for you. But there's something about, I don't know, the way the record sounds like bombs going off or something that I just love. Frontierer is a Scottish band that's really technical, really heavy, really frantic. Kind of like, I don't know, if you put like Dillinger Escape Plan and Car Bomb and Meshuggah all into a blender and just set it to pissed and let that thing cook for a while. That's kind of what they sound like. Super, super intense. And honestly, like a lot of the times, and this is part of why I like it, I can't really tell what the guitars are doing. Like I can't tell what notes are being played or how they're playing the riffs. It's just these huge abrasive noises, which I like because it keeps me, I don't know, from getting in my head about it. Because a lot of times when I listen to, you know, a lot of guitar music, I'm kind of like auto-transcribing that stuff in my head. I'm barely listening. I'm just thinking about like where on the neck that's probably being played, what the picking pattern is, whatever, just nerd stuff, you know? But with that band and the way the records sound, I can't really tell what's going on with the guitars a lot, so I just listen to it like I imagine normal people listen to music. It's been like my go-to gym playlist here lately, because there's something about the sound of that record that just gets me amped up, you know? I've had some really super long, super intense workouts listening to that record lately, so it's getting good to me and making me harder to kill. So be sure to check out the Orange Mathematics Redux by Frontier. Thanks so much for watching this video, and a huge thanks goes out to my Patreon community for asking such awesome freaking questions. Join the fun over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. It's going to get you access to hundreds of bonus goodies, extended edition videos, tabs, backing tracks, all kinds of good stuff, and the opportunity to ask some questions for the next installment of this series. That means the next episode very well could be yours, so be sure to sign up today over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars, even for just $1 a month. I'll see you there. As we go through our week, let's keep a good thought and be kind to our fellow human being. We can make the world a better place one act of kindness at a time, but it's got to start somewhere, and that's with you and I. So be good to each other out there, whether it's in the real world or the online world, whatever. Now get away from that computer machine, grab that rock guitar, and start mashing some ropes with both hands. Less clicking, more picking.